You know, of course, all cultures, all human beings tell stories. And this is particularly true of the Jewish people, as you probably know. But, you know, people from the beginning of time have told stories to explain the world around them, to help to remember their histories, and to encode their beliefs or their myths or legends, their values, and to especially teach their young. So we Jews are called HaSefer, the book, the people of the book. And that book, of course, refers to the Torah. But even before the Torah was written down, we had the oral tradition. And in fact, if you think about, I was just informed that the design here is depicting creation, okay? And it's a beautiful image. So do any of you know how it is that God created the world? By speaking. What did God said? Let there be, right? Let there be light, let there be. And so the verb to speak, you know, the action of speaking, the spoken word is incredibly powerful, right? God created the world by speaking, and I do believe that we as storytellers create worlds in a sense because we can help others to understand and see the world through our eyes and what our experiences have been. So it's a very powerful tradition of telling stories, and there's midrash in our the classic midrash was developed back in the early centuries of the Common Era when the Judaic sages were trying to figure out how do you answer some questions that were coming up, you know, about like the Torah has a lot of information, but there's a lot of things left out. And so what they did was so drash means to seek or to examine, but also midrash was really about using one's imagination and creating stories to fill in those blanks and to understand things more. And there's one midrash that I just wanted to share a small part of with you, which is about the very beginning of the Torah, chapter 1, verse 1 of Genesis. And they say that before God created the world, God created the Torah. And the alphabet, the letters of the alphabet, blazed on the crown of God and jumped down before God's throne. And each was asking, could I be the first letter of the Torah? Well, each letter came forth and talked about what qualities they had and why they deserved to be the first letter. Well, like Dalet. Dalet demanded to be the first letter. Aren't I the one who begins the word devar, divine word? And God is going to speak the world into being? Yes, but Dalet also starts the word din, judgment. Too harsh a note on which to begin a whole new world. And then there was Shin. Shin said, surely I would shine as the first letter. Don't I begin Shaddai, one of God's names? Yes, but Shin also begins the word shav, lie. Oh, that would not do either. And each letter had positive qualities and, as in life, also some not so positive qualities. And each letter was put to the side until Bet came along. And Bet said, I am the letter through which we bless you. Baruch atah Adonai. And God put Bet at the beginning of the Torah. Bereshit, in the beginning. Bara Elohim, God created. Et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, heaven and earth. And so, all of the other letters took their important places in the Torah. Now, I like to think that each of us has an important place too. And just like those letters in the Torah, we all need each other to form our words and to form our thoughts and to listen to one another's stories. So each of us has an important place and cannot exist without the other. Now, one of the things I wanted to do is kind of deconstruct for you a little bit, what is the art of storytelling? What do people do when they tell stories? And so having just seen that little snippet of a story I did, I thought I would invite you to raise your hand and tell me, what do you think the storyteller's tools are? Like, what do we have at our disposal when we're telling a story? Yeah? Voice. Movement. Gesture, yeah. Expression, yeah. Yes. Engagement with the listeners, yeah, good. Intonation of the voice, yeah. Mm-hmm. Humor, good, yeah. Yeah.
Eye contact.
Uh-huh.
Emotional connection.
Yeah. So, yes.
Memory.
Memory. Yes, another one. Imagination. Good. Well, these are all great. I made a list, and you added some that I hadn't put. What's that? Words, yes. And sometimes I use music, instruments, and certainly the listener participation is about engaging the listeners, and sometimes I'll also invite people to repeat refrains with me or that kind of thing. So just to give you some idea, those are some of the tools, obviously, that storytellers have. Now, a lot of it comes quite intuitively. Yes?
One thing missing.
Yes?
Is memory.
Memory. Yeah, that's a good one to add. Thank you. I will put that on there next time. So there are many foundational narratives in the Torah, of course, and the concept of journey and change is really central to any story. And I have a slide here of a story arc. As you can see, that's the name of my business too. Can you see okay? So, often people talk about a story arc that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. You begin somewhere in your story. You pick a point in time at which to begin. And then along the way, the character in the story meets various challenges. Sometimes is helped by people or has to deal with obstacles. And then in the journey of the story is changed in some way, so that by the end, the question is, how have you been changed? And what is it you know now that you didn't know before you set off? So with this metaphor of journey, the Open Your Eyes Committee chose the title Roots and Roots, R-O-O-T-S, R-O-U-T-E-S. And I think it's quite apt as we think about our journey stories. And it can be interpreted, literally as well as in other ways, because any experience is, in a sense, a journey. I wanted to give you an example of a story that I created as a midrash. So there are a lot of contemporary midrashim as well, where people in all the different arts create various interpretations of Jewish stories. So like you probably know, The Red Tent by Anita Diamond is an example of fictional midrash in a sense, right? There's a lot of visual art that's done as interpretations of stories. And so I was invited actually to a different synagogue a couple weeks ago when we were reading Parsha Lech Lecha. And I wanted to just share a little bit of this story that I created. And what I do is I imagine a character in the narrative and give that character a voice. And sometimes in the practice of kind of filling in the blanks and, wondering about the people that are not necessarily named or who don't have a speaking part in the Torah, what might they have been going through? What might they be thinking or feeling? And so I'm going to speak in the voice of Abraham's mother. Now, she is not named in the Torah, but in the Talmud she is named Amatla. At least there's various names she's given in different traditions. And so I'm just going to do a little snippet of this piece about Amatla. And just to orient you, this point in the Torah is where Abraham and Sarah, who are at that point called Avram and Sarai, are about to go forth. That's what Lech Lecha means, right? To go forth and leave their native land and go to a land that God will show them. My son, Avram, and his wife Sarai, they are about to leave. Where are they going? They don't even know themselves. Can you imagine? But I am not going to go with them. They were sweet and asked me, but I know that I don't have the strength for the journey, and I don't want to be a burden. And selfishly, I'll tell you, I'm sad that they're going. But my son, Avram, he says that he has heard the voice of God, who is telling him to go forth and to a place, a new land, and he will be a blessing, and his followers will be blessed. I don't know, my son, why? Maybe it is because he is listening so well. I guess I should have known from the very beginning that he would be so extraordinary. Well, before he was born, King Nimrod's astrologers looked in the sky and they saw a light. And from that, they predicted that Terach and my son would grow up and threaten the authority of King Nimrod. They wanted to harm him, to kill my son. Well, we hid him in a cave, and no one knew that he lived. He challenged us and questioned us all the time. From a very young age, he asked, why is it we worship the sun in the sky? Who created the sun? Well, these questions were hard for us, but in time, Terach and I, we changed. Now, all these followers are deciding to go along, and I will have no way of knowing where they end up, how their journey goes. And I wish the best for them. I look at their faces and there's such excitement. Who gets to have a new beginning like this? How often? Especially at their age. And so, I will put on a brave face, and I will give him my blessing, a mother's blessing. So, I want to just point out that in creating that story, I started working with that material at the time when my children were getting ready to go off to college and leaving home. And so I think, how we engage with Torah and find meaning in it for ourselves with these stories. So, one can infuse one's experience into those stories and interpretations. Another story, of course, is the Exodus story. And there are many points of view there within the Exodus story about leaving. And I'm always intrigued with Miriam because, well, you can hear from her for a minute. Gather round, hear the beat of the drum, gather round, hear the song in your heart. Come, gather round, come, gather round. Women, come and bring your timbrels, your tambourines, your hand drums. You know, it's going to be time to leave soon, and you need to think about what you will pack, what you will bring, for we can only bring what we can carry. And as we go on this journey, we are going to leave slavery behind us. I can see us. We will dance and sing and celebrate our freedom. But you know, I get a little ahead of myself sometimes, it's true. Prophets do that sometimes. I had a prophecy that my parents would have another child who would grow up and lead us out of this slavery. Now, I know that many of you perhaps were not even alive at the time that I made that prophecy, or maybe you've forgotten or lost hope. But I want to tell you that you can come and you can have faith that we will reach our freedom. We don't know where we're going, it's true. But just remember to pack your timbrels, for we will celebrate.